Hello and welcome to a very special edition of Thornton. Hello and welcome to warrenthornton.com in conjunction with Unprecedented TV. If you're watching the show, you're watching the first hour of what is normally quite a long show, normally 2 hours, maybe sometimes a bit longer. And if you can bear to stand my voice for that long, come across to warrenthornton.com because we can show you videos that we can't show on mainstream media, which will get cancelled. And of course, it is very, very difficult, should we say, to get those past the censorship that goes on all Western media platforms at the moment. So that having been said, if you like what we do here, head across to warrenthornton.com. This is what we're going to be talking about tonight. There we are. So that is the, should we say, what we're going to begin talking about very, very shortly. But we have to start with an exclusive and something that we think nobody else is actually talking about. We're going to start talking about it right now so you can have an idea of what is going on. Now, you will remember a couple of days ago, we were talking about the Ukrainians saying that basically they'd hit civilian buildings and killed people, and that the Russians were saying they had hit a hotel in Kavoy Rog. Now, Kavoy Rog is the home, the sort of spiritual home of Vladimir Zelensky. And in one of these hotels that they have there was housing mercenary soldiers. Now, we need to tell you exactly what is going on here for the simple fact that they were housing mercenary soldiers there a while back, and the building was hit, and mercenary soldiers from many other countries, including Ukrainian soldiers, were killed. Now, the same hotel has been hit once again. And this is the reason we are about to get into, because there has been a row that has broken out on social media, or shall we say, an upset on social media between the defense minister of Poland, which is Sikorsky, and of course, Elon Musk. Now, let's have a little look here. Now, Radoslaw Sikorsky said, "Hey, big man at Elon Musk, why don't you stop the Russians from using Starlink to target Ukrainian cities? Making money on war crimes may damage your brand," which seemed a really strange thing for him to say. Elon Musk replied, "This drooling imbecile doesn't even realize that Starlink is the backbone of Ukraine military communications." Now, Adam Lousy got this about right. Elon does routinely stop Russian soldiers from using Starlink. Unfortunately, Russians are always coming up with new methods to bypass restrictions. It's a game of cat and mouse. Elon Musk is trying his hardest to forward him any new intelligence that his team can work with. Well, why did Sikorsky suddenly go off the deep end and start having a go at Elon Musk? Well, let's get into the reasons why, shall we? Because Sikorsky does have a point, but he's being very disingenuous. Now, Kavoy Rog was hit, and there were soldiers killed there, or mercenary soldiers, as we would say. Now, very, very simply, let's get you into this very straightforward thing. of understanding what happens with mercenary soldiers and what happens with regular soldiers. So what we've got is regular soldiers who are then seconded to these paramilitary companies. Now, if you don't think that's the case, let me just take you through the case of a couple of planes that were attacked by the Palestinian Action Group. And you will have seen the Palestinian Action Group broke in onto an airfield and basically put all sorts of paint and £10 million worth of aircraft were rendered useless for a while. Now, these planes were actually subcontracted out by the British military. So this does happen, and this also happens with soldiers because it is plausible deniability. So they subcontract these soldiers out, and then if anything happens to them, they can claim that they weren't part of the military. Now, when it comes to mercenary soldiers, we showed you the other day the Colombians have taken the heaviest hits. Now, when we talk about the Colombians, the mercenary soldiers that go and fight for Ukraine, we showed you a video where 40 odd of one poor Colombian lads, group of people that came from Bogota, that there are only 3 of them left. Now, the Colombians have taken the biggest hit in terms of mercenary soldiers in this war, with over 7,000 of the 12,000 that have been fighting in Ukraine dying. The second biggest hit is with Polish soldiers that are seconded as mercenaries. Now, we can reveal from our source in Poland, and we are talking somebody very, very close to the military. We can't go too deep into what he is and who he is for the simple fact it would give the game away and will put the guy in, should we say, real danger. But he has confirmed to me the same thing that I am hearing from other sources inside Ukraine, that 47 of the 81 that were killed in Kavoy Rog were actually Polish mercenary soldiers seconded, or should we say seconded to private military companies. So they're actually serving Polish soldiers. Now, people will go, oh, that can't be right. Yes, it is right. We are absolutely certain of our facts. And of course, this is a reason why Sikorsky has suddenly gone off the deep end, because he's been made absolutely aware of what is going on and what has happened to those soldiers. So we are claiming, absolutely certain of our facts, that 47 mercenary Polish soldiers were killed in the airstrike the other day on Kavoy Rog. Now, there were others killed. We believe there's a couple of Canadians, quite a few Colombians and Ukrainians that were killed in this strike. And it's not the first time that particular hotel has been hit. And of course, they do use that, shall we say, for all sorts of clandestine meetings and stuff like that that go on all the time. So hopefully that's cleared up why we suddenly got this huge row. Now, let's get into this, because we're going to have a little bit of a gentleman called Alexander Makouros, and he's going to be talking about the possible naval blockade or the possibility of Iran hitting the aircraft carrier, the US Abraham Lincoln. And he's wrong on some parts, and on some parts, he's right. So without further ado, let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Have also, by the way, been making further threats. They have said that the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is the American supercarrier that is positioned close to Iran, is a target for the Iranians. I am not sure that the Iranians have the capability to strike at a US Navy carrier. As I understand it, the problem is not the range of the missiles, the Iranian missiles, or even their capabilities. It is that a carrier is a continuously moving target, a fast moving target. It moves at a speed, apparently, when it is in battle, of something like 30 knots, and of course it is surrounded by a protective wall of warships that are there to protect it. So it is a difficult target to track and to hit. But then I, of course, know absolutely nothing about the extent of Iranian capabilities in this area, or of what assistance the Iranians might be getting from their friends. All I would say about this is that if a supercarrier is struck by an Iranian missile, then even if the carrier itself survives the strike, the effect is simply going to be tremendous. I don't want to even contemplate the possibility of what that might mean. But anyway, the Iranians are warning that they might do that. And the Iranians are also taking steps to protect themselves, as they failed to do in advance of the June 2025 12-day war against a decapitation strike. They're saying that any attempts to kill Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, would be taken by Iran as an act of all-out war. They've received verbal support for this from their regional allies, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the separate, completely distinct Hezbollah in Iraq. I understand that the Shia religious leadership in Iraq has also weighed in on Iran's side in this matter, though I haven't myself seen the reports about this. And perhaps more importantly, the Iranian government is apparently creating decentralized structure of authority in Iran. The regional governors have apparently been called into a meeting, had a meeting with the Iranian president Pezeshkian. They were given apparently emergency powers, so that if Iranian officials in Tehran were killed as a result of some kind of decapitation strike, Iran's governmental structure would survive and would be more resilient against that kind of attack than it proved to be in the early days, in the first day of the 12-day war. So the Iranians are hunkering down. They're preparing for the attack. And for the record, the internet is still mostly shut across Iran, even though the protests in Iran have ended, with the Iranian authorities saying that around 3,000 people were killed during the protests altogether, of whom some 600 were what they claim were violent protesters, the people who tried to take over the protests, some of whom were armed and who conducted attacks. Anyway.
So there we are. So let's get into some of them. For very simply, the Saudis, people are asking questions in the chat. Have Saudi said no American planes in its airspace for attacks on Iran? That's very fluid. And of course, they don't want that to happen, because the Yemenis and many others, Iran, have said that they will shut the Straits of Hormuz. And they have, Alexander is completely right when they say that they've had a word with MBS, who is basically the ruler of Saudi Arabia, saying that they will shut the Strait of Hormuz. Now, do Iran have and its allies have the capacity to do that? Absolutely, they do. 100%. Anybody who's in any doubt on that, don't be. They literally can shut the Straits of Hormuz with what they will do. And of course, the Yemenis and everybody else will start helping them. Well, how bad can it get? We are talking about a possible naval blockade. Now, this is the nonsense that is being carried here by the Jerusalem Post. They are examining the possibility of imposing a naval blockade on Iran that would prevent the exporting of oil. President Trump previously took a similar step against Maduro regime in Venezuela. well, these are not Venezuela. And a few weeks later, launched an operation at capturing President Maduro and his wife. The advantages of such an operation are clear when the regime cannot be overthrown due to the absence of protests. Massive economic pressure may encourage demonstrations, once again destabilize the regime from within. So that's what they're looking at the possibility of doing, which of course, as we know, these idiotic strikes that they actually put out were of no use whatsoever, because they shut Starlink down. For those of you who didn't know, I'm going to give you, and it's going to sound very, very boring, but I'm going to give you a quick rundown of exactly what happened so that you are fully aware of what was going on during those riots. And by the way, the tragic news from Iran of the 19-year-old influencer Diana Bador that's doing the rounds, known as Baby Rider, for her defiant motorcycle rides without a hijab. If you go and look at most women in Iran, they don't have to wear a hijab. It's not defiant at all. You can do that or not do it, which is complete nonsense. Was reportedly shot and killed by the regime security forces. And this is completely and utterly untrue. She actually died in a car accident, and they tried to say that the regime made their parents say this. Now, the father of this, shall we say, social influencer has had to come out and say, this is absolutely not true. Please don't use our daughter's tragic death as a political football, which is exactly what Israel, the United States, and their social media accounts have been doing. So what about the problems that they had with the original protests inside of Iran? Now, the rial, which is their currency, was bought by foreign banks. Then they sold that currency for peanuts, thus devaluing its worth on top of the economic sanctions they placed on the people they claimed to care about for decades. Ordinary people protested, and just like Nepal, Georgia, and Ukraine, it was engineered to allow NGOs to attach themselves to a government overthrow. And of course, like it did in Nepal and Ukraine, it worked. In Georgia, it did not. As we broadcast, and you would have heard on our show, we heard people were overheard publishing recordings of outsiders plotting the deaths of civilians in Georgia just to get the thing having some momentum. Now, Iran's NGOs and Kurdish groups were given weapons smuggled through the American Zangezur corridor that they leased last year in at the top of the north of Iran. That is the gap. The Zangezur corridor is between Armenia and of course, Azerbaijan. Now, this, I know we're going over old ground here, and I'm very, very sorry for this, but for people watching, I think it's important. Now, the Zangezur corridor is run by private companies and private military companies such as Blackwater and Halliburton, who work very closely with the CIA, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. These weapons were left over by Americans when they left Afghanistan, and they were traded through Pakistan with the Kurds and other terrorist cells such as Jaish al-Adi. These groups were then coordinated all in different cities. Amongst these weapons were grenades, flamethrowers, automatic weapons, and military-grade ammunition, some peaceful protest. Then the whole thing was coordinated to break out in violence, and it was agreed that around 30,000 civilians would need to die in about 14 or 15 different cities. So the Americans would intervene, or the number to die was already set, so that America would go and intervene. So much for caring for the people of Iran, as these people claim they do. All this was coordinated through the over 400,000 Starlink terminals that appeared in Iran in the last 2 years. When Iran literally approached the Russians to jam Starlink successfully, as they had done in Ukraine, the cells could no longer coordinate the violence. Now, let me give you some numbers for the so-called fight for the freedom of the people. The liberation of the people smashed over 300 ambulances and buses, 24 petrol stations, 700 shops, 300 homes, including killing 48 non-protesters inside their own homes, ordinary citizens, 400 banks and government buildings, 740 police stations, 2 Armenian churches, 250 bus stations, 800 cars. And to prevent people accessing money or travel, over 1,700 ATMs we now know have been destroyed, 15 libraries, over 200 schools. Now, during that time, they burned 350 mosques and no synagogues whatsoever. And of course, the idiots are actually turning around and saying the weapons were hidden in the mosques. That's why they burned them. That is utter nonsense. And of course, absolutely no mosques were raided and found any weapons whatsoever inside them. In fact, they were all found inside people's homes and inside, shall we say, these NGO groups' buildings. They killed 3 children, nothing to do with the riots, shot from behind. And the so-called Pavlovists cannot be called by their actual names, as the game would be up. They killed over 2,400 non-protesters and security forces, and 690 terrorists or freedom fighters, depending whether you believe America or you believe Iran, were killed. Now, many more were arrested. Hundreds are Kurdish and hundreds from other countries, holding not only their own passports, but Israeli ones too. Now, thousands of weapons have been recovered and tens of thousands of bullets, RPGs, normal grenades, and almost every single one of these homes that was raided had a Starlink terminal in there. This was a bloody, violent, attempted coup to overthrow the government of Iran, sponsored by the usual suspects who were employing the same people to kill Chinese engineers on the Belt and Road. Now, what happened to the nuclear bomb Iran were weeks away from? Well, Netanyahu has been pushing that agenda since 2012, when he was saying they were clearly only weeks away from doing this sort of thing. So that gives you a quick rundown of what happened with that. Now let's get on with the rest of the show once we have now cleared up the matter of these protests. Anything else you are hearing is utter nonsense and is, of course, either Israel or American-driven nonsense. And that is just us being absolutely straight so that you are able to separate one from the other. Since those failed, of course, we've had lots of planes, carriers, cargo planes and everything arriving in Jordan. This is one that has left Mildenhall and gone to Jordan. And over the last, for the last 7 or 8 days, we've been showing you the build-up. Now, finally, people are catching up and going, it's very, very close. There's going to be an attack and everything else. Well, we turned around and said this in September, if you watch this channel. We said in September that they would be coming back after Christmas to have another go. It was never over. It was always going to happen again. Now, what has gone on in terms of this so-called blockade? What they're looking for, and we have already told you this as well, is that that now the mainstream media are finally latching on to the fact that they're going to turn around and try and kill or cut the head off the snakes. This is never about nuclear. It was never about anything else, but literally changing or overthrowing the government of Iran. And it's never been about anything else. It certainly wasn't anything to do with nuclear ability. And of course, we have Netanyahu coming out and saying this, as I say, since 2012, he's been banging this drum that they're weeks away from having a nuclear arsenal. Nobody's buying that for 1 second. If you are, I've a bridge to sell you, as I always say. Now, the absolute nonsense figures, remember that these figures were agreed upon, and everybody is now trying to up the death toll, saying that in Gaza, this is the death toll, the casualties. They are trying to have you believe that 50,000 people are now dead, there's 300,000 casualties, and there we see in Gaza the death toll, 171,000 casualties in 840 days. They managed to achieve this in Iran in 14 days. It's complete nonsense. Literally 3,000 people are dead in Iran, and we have gone through those numbers for you of those that have died and how they died and who was responsible for this. So where do we go from here? Well, very, very simply, what we have is the idea that they're going getting back to it, that they are going to blockade literally Iran like they did in Venezuela. This is not going to happen. This is a fool's errand, and it is simply unworkable. We're going to take you through some of the reasons why this is unworkable, why this can't happen. And of course, these people, everybody that is turning around and saying this could happen, it'll be all right, they can blockade Iran. Have a little look at this. Now, that's the routes of traffic for ships and boats that are going through in those areas. And of course, people are turning around and saying, well, they could easily blockade it, couldn't they? No, they couldn't. And very, very simply, as I say, there are tons of reasons why. For every Iranian ship that gets seized, they'll simply seize an American one. This has happened in the past, and the US has practically no way to prevent it. And if it escalates to actually sinking ships, then they've got plenty of options for that too. The US Navy cannot really enter the Persian Gulf in war times. They'd be sitting ducks for anti-ship missiles and fast attack crafts. Even suicide drones would pose a major threat. Just look what happened in the Red Sea. Why repeat a failed experience? Iran is not Venezuela, and there is no quick win scenario, even though Trump has instructed the US Navy and other branches of the US military to prepare for imposing a blockade. Now, he did that, and he wants that ready by Friday. So we would imagine that strikes are probably coming on the Saturday, if they're going to come at all. And of course, there are lots of people that are turning around and saying that's not going to happen. And me personally, we will have to see what goes on here, because of course we're going to get it worse and worse and worse as this all ramps up. Now, Trump has turned around and said, let's do a deal. But the blockade, let's get very simply here, the Americans think that the advantages of such an operation are clear. When it's impossible to overthrow the regime because there are no protests, massive economic protests could shake the regime from within. Iran doesn't mess around. Iran has shown again and again it will defend itself if provoked. When a pair of US Navy boats sailed into Iranian waters in 2016, Iran seized them. And of course, US superiority be damned as far as they're concerned. When a US spy drone accidentally veered into Iranian airspace in 2019, it was blasted to bits. When the US killed a top IRGC commander in Iraq in 2020, Iran rained missiles down on 2 US bases. And when Israel and the US attacked Iran in 2025, Iran hit back so hard, Israel still hasn't recovered. Take a wild guess what would happen if the US tried to blockade and target Iran's key economic lifeline. Well, the energy choke point we've gone over. Iran straddles the Hormuz Strait, the most sensitive energy bottleneck on Earth. Want to wipe out 20% of the planet's daily oil and then LNG gas consumption in an instant? Try blockading Iran. Iran's entire asymmetric warfare strategy is based on an A2AD, anti-access, anti-denial, built on armadas of small, swarming fast attack boats, midget subs, mine layers, and tens of thousands of drones and naval cruise missiles. Iran unquestionably has the means to close the Straits of Hormuz. Think of a 2.2 kilometer long network stretching from Basra to Muscat with a 1 kilometer radius and 3 to 5 kilometers if Iran converts its longest range ballistic missiles to an anti-ship role. Forget the Gulf. US ships wouldn't be safe anywhere in the Med or the Indian Ocean, all the way to the Straits of Malacca. Secondly, you've got a logistics nightmare. When Venezuela is in the US backyard, Iran is, for all intents and purposes, on the other side of the world as far as power projection capabilities are concerned. Case in point, sailing a carrier to the Caribbean takes 3 to 7 days. Doing the same from Japan to CENTCOM's AOR, obviously, the base of operations takes 2 weeks. Add to that the bases and thousands of servicemen the US has kindly placed within range of Iran missiles. The diplomatic disaster, the Venezuela blockade, cost China 5% of its crude imports. A painful but bearable blow. Iran accounts for 13 to 16% of Beijing's oil needs. They are not going to be sitting on their hands. Cordoning it would be equivalent to a US declaration of economic war. If other Gulf imports accounted for 40 to 50% China's crudes have cut, that's full-scale kinetic war territory. US Gulf allies, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, and the UAE, won't idly sit by and watch Trump destroy their economies. They would immediately pressure Washington, and are doing so right now, to step back from the brink using energy and arms contracts and trillions in US debt and investments as leverage. Now, the Houthis' preview is very, very simple. The US twin failed attempts to tame Yemen's sort of besandled holy warriors prove that even as a small poor adversary in control of a strategic maritime checkpoint can stand up and defeat a superpower using older missiles and simple drone designs. Multiply that by a factor of about 1,000, and that is what you will get if you try to blockade Iran. So I hope it has become very, very clear for people, or certainly to the Americans and other people that are watching or listening, that that simply is not going to be something that will be that is viably workable. And of course, we have had Iran. Trump has said, let's do a deal. And Iran have turned around and said, we are not talking about any deals whatsoever. We are talking about the defense of our country. And should you attack us, we are going to sink one of your carriers. Now, of course, Alexander Makuros was saying how terrible it would be, of course, if that happened. And he didn't want to take, shall we say, any sort of, what's the word I'm looking for here? He didn't want to contemplate just how bad it would be. Would the Americans drop a nuclear bomb on Iran? Let's face it, the last people who bombed their ships, they did exactly that after Pearl Harbor with Japan. Now, what ballistic missiles does Iran have in its arsenal? Well, here we go. We can have a look at the range that it actually has. And as you can see from these, now a lot of these are are Russian and, of course, Chinese missiles, but they're called by a different name. So you've got the FAST 360, which is 75 kilometers, then the Shabib, which can reach 300 kilometers. Then you've got obviously the mid-range ones that, of course, can do a lot more damage and can travel a lot further. In fact, the longest range they have is the Karamashar, which has a range of over 3,000 kilometers. Now, only 7 of these are hypersonic. And of course, but they've been given more toys and more weapons by the Russians. Now, Alexander Makuros was completely incorrect whether Iran had the capacity to be able to hit the aircraft carrier anywhere in the Straits of Hormuz or anywhere close. Absolutely, Iran have got the capacity. They have Chinese satellites that are tracking at the moment, and the Chinese are helping them. They have Chinese satellites tracking the US Abraham Lincoln. He was saying about the movement of it, these hypersonic missiles, and he's saying about the defense that the Americans have around it. They simply do not have anything to stop a hypersonic missile. And it may be traveling at 30 knots in the water. These missiles travel at Mach 7. So very, very simply, when you have missiles traveling at Mach 7, Mach 8, and I've spoken to somebody on this just to make sure I was clear of my facts, that literally, if you aimed at the spot and you fired one of these missiles from where Iran would launch them, it would hit them no problem whatsoever. And of course, they can be guided while they're in mid-flight. We're Robert first, and then Nillis.
I noticed in the plan of the ranges, they're elliptically shorter towards the Indian Ocean. Well, the Americans have got the Chagos Islands, which have a big American base there. Do the missiles need contact to continue to their target?
In what sense do you mean contact?
Do they need to be in contact with whoever's sending them, or do they just take their instruction and operate onto the grid reference that's programmed into it?
They do head towards a grid reference, but the thing is, they have cameras on these. They actually have onboard cameras on these missiles, so they're able to adjust. Very, very simply able to adjust them in mid-flight.
Oh, I suppose where it's elliptically shorter, there are fewer radio contact beacons to keep in touch with it. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Warren.
No problem whatsoever. Nillis.
Do we know what Mach 7 is in kilometers per hour or miles per hour?
So Mach, we do know that Mach 10 is Mach 10 is around 1,300 kilometers an hour. So I would say around about 800 kilometers an hour, something like that.
Right. I think so. It's fast.
Yes, that's very, very fast indeed. It is. We're we're talking the best part, Port Farrell, we're talking the best part, 650 mile an hour minimum. Okay, so we are talking at rates of closing over a distance of maybe a couple of 100 miles. Not going to take too long to get. Now, they are putting the THAAD missile systems, the American THAAD missile systems, are being deployed on their air bases. And of course, they're hoping, and the Patriot missile systems. And we've all seen how the Patriot missile systems have done in Ukraine. They've done terribly. And people who turn around and go, oh, no, the Patriot missile system's a fantastic system. No, it isn't. It really is as bad as you are, or the people are telling you. And if you're not hearing that they're bad, then you're getting bad information. Because, of course, we will see over the space of time, we have seen that when the Iran war was going on, of course, that they were able to bash them in no time at all. Nillis. Oh, he's just got his hand up there.
Sorry.
That's all right, not a problem. So very simply, let's get into what is going to happen from here. Now, they are asking, Trump is saying, let's come together, let's do a deal. And of course, they're not having it. The Iranian source that we have spoken to, now the flight data has shown that non-essential US diplomatic personnel are being moved out of the Middle East. So they've absolutely are going to go forward with these strikes. There is a sort of row between Nillis and I, whether it's going to happen before the end of the month. But it's certainly coming. Now, an Iranian source that we know has given the enemy's military build-up and said negotiation is not our priority. Instead, decisive defense is our top priority. We will raise our defensive readiness to the highest level in the face of the American military mobilization. If the Americans want negotiation without predetermining their outcomes, then Iran quite happy to listen. The United States cannot force us to negotiate through military buildup. We take the possibility of war very seriously and will not be distracted by idiotic messages from the United States. We will target the base itself and the same point from which aerial operations against us are launched. We will not target other countries because we do not consider them hostile states. We have designed our response in a way that will make them not even consider launching limited attacks again. Should any of these attacks be coming our way, you will pay a very, very heavy price, including anything that you have on the water. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, we all know that for the 12-day war last year, the Americans aren't to be trusted. And Iran don't trust the Americans. Once bitten, twice shy. Fool me once, fool me twice, don't fool me. It's not going to happen. The Iranians are not, they may not be the brightest lights on the Christmas tree, but they're not stupid.
No.
By any means. And they trusted the Americans' good word, well, what they thought was a good word, for the last war, and then the Americans attacked. It's not going to happen again.
No, they're absolutely not having it. And this is, how can I put this? There's people out there that are talking about this and saying there's no chance we're going to allow this to happen again. So you're absolutely right. Once bitten, twice shy. Lee Williams.
A quick one. Mach 1 of Spade is 767 miles an hour.
Oh, there we go.
Hour.
There we go. So, when you're talking about these moving at what, Mach 7, Mach 8, that's pretty, it's pretty damn fast. I think Mach 7 is something like just over sorry, I was saying 500, wasn't I? I meant 5,000 miles an hour. Nillis.
Yeah, well, I think the Iranians are bright. If you remember, it was General Soleimani who masterminded the defeat of ISIS in Syria, and Trump had him murdered for that reason. And but they just don't want war. If you have war, you're going to kill a lot of your people. They've just been through the Iran-Iraq war, which was basically Saddam Hussein put up by the Americans to attack Iran. And so many people died in that. They don't want war. it's always the West that is pushing war, and I think they've discovered that they're going to have war if they want it or not. So that's why they're going to fight this time.
Yeah, and of course, the how can I put it? The narrative that they're being put out there is complete nonsense, and more is beginning to come out. Now, there was a 17-year-old motorcyclist, a man, nothing to do with the protest whatsoever. He wasn't masked up or anything. They grabbed him off his motorbike and they burnt him alive. Let's have a look.
گرا بودم که اومدن شمشیر یکی موتوری بهم پرد داد. بعد من گرفتمش دست که آقای حسین اومدم سمت این ور بودو سمت حسینم آشنای قبلی داشتیم باشون. بعد منو تحریک کرد گفت که قمر رو اینجوری بگی بالا، مثلا الان هیچ دختری اینجا نیست، تو داخل تماشاگرها بودی، هیچ دختری اینجا نیست، تو این کار رو کن، مثلا قمر تو بگی بالا، اینجوری کنی قمه‌ای که الان دستت رو بگی بالا. خب من گرفتم بالا، بعد دوباره بودو رفتم سمت اون ور، سمت تماشاگرها وایسادم داخل اغتشاشگرها. یکی بود همین یه چیز داخل دستش، ولی چیز بود روش، یه پارچه مشکی روش بود، نمیدونم حالا تفنگ بود یا هر چی بود نمیدونم. تا یه موتوری اومده بود، یه پسر بچه بود، اون پسر بچه نه 17 سال میکرد، سربوزش باز بود، شنا هستن قهوه‌ایان، اونا تنش بود، جلوشو گرفتن اومدن لباسشو میخواستن در بیارن، بعد قسم میخورد میگفت من چیز نیستم، من نمیدونم چیز نیستم و من فلان کردم، بعد بلوزش در بردن انداختن داخل اون آتش.
So there we are. As you can see, very simply from this, these people were not security services at all. These were paid agitators, and they were paid to kill ordinary Iranian citizens in the hope that they would get them to rise up. And of course, it quite simply didn't happen. And there are dozens of these videos that you can see where they are literally going out and doing this. Nilis.
Yeah, I remember there was a very similar incident in the Hong Kong riots. An old man who went to remonstrate with the protesters, saying you should respect your elders, and they burnt him alive. The BBC cameras were there, but they turned off the cameras when this old man was being burned alive. But when the Chinese priests went to intercede and restrain the protesters, that's when they turned the cameras back on. So there's a lot of propaganda. The Western media is all about propaganda, really. It's not about telling the truth.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a good point, really well made. And of course, you're just going to see more and more of this. It's not going to. This is not going away, by the way. And the people who are volunteering now from Hezbollah to go on suicide missions. These are people turning up at Hezbollah camps saying, quite happy to volunteer for suicide missions. So as far as they're concerned, they're literally getting sick of the nonsense that is going out. And of course, we have in the West all manner of people that are coming out with this. Nilis.
Well, yeah, Hezbollah arose because of Israel's occupation of Lebanon. It's a Lebanese organization, and they're not like ISIS. During the Lebanese civil war, they protected the Christians, because I know, because a Christian Lebanese told me. He said they protected Christians during the civil war, and they've been painted with the ISIS type brush by the West, but they're not like that at all.
Yeah,
you're very muffled, Nilis.
Yeah, can't hear you very well, Nilis.
Right, sorry.
That's all right, not a problem. When we're sort of talking about everything that's going on with this war, at the moment, and let's tell you exactly how we feel on this. At the moment, this nonsense that is coming out of the Western media saying that all these people have died, it's simply not true. And of course, we're going to get more and more of this. Let's have a listen to Netanyahu.
And the Iranian axis is trying to rebuild itself. That's true, but we will not allow it. If Iran makes that terrible mistake and attacks Israel, we will respond mightily in a way that Iran has never seen before.
So what are you going to do? You're going to drop a nuclear weapon? Because we all know you've got them. But here's the problem. Now, he's saying about Iran attacking Israel. If America are attacked, that is on behalf of Israel. And we know that you have been pushing and pushing and pushing this agenda. And of course, the Israelis were begging literally for a deal. Now, they're giving it the big one simply because they've got America backing them. They didn't have, and of course, very, very quickly, they wanted, shall we say, to get rid of this. Now, let's have a little talk about how bad America seemed to want this as well. Louis Bastos.
Hi, everyone. If Israel used a nuke against Iran, Israel will disappear as well.
Yes.
I don't think that's stupid. Huh?
Russia and China are not going to allow that. So let's get into, we have a scenario, don't we, where they might send, where they might send one of these ships to the bottom of the ocean. This is, as I said before, this is something. Are Iran brave enough to do it? Probably not, but the implications are enormous if they were brave enough to do so. And I've written and spoken about this morning, but I'm going to repeat this. They clearly have the hypersonic weapons to do so, but the prevailing wind is for appeasement rather than escalation. Such an act would be seen as horrific, and Western social media accounts would be alight for weeks with Israeli and USA shield social media accounts going into overdrive and meltdown. On the other side of the coin, such an act would be treated with enormous glee that somebody had stood up to the world bullies apart from Russia. One remembers that America dropped 2 atomic bombs on the last country to send American ships to the bottom of the ocean. And of course, vast numbers would be lining up to say either America or Iran had it coming. Iran would certainly catch hell after them for all the threats. One doubts not the capacity, but the will of Iran to do what they threaten. The warmongers in the USA would go ballistic and demand everything from boots on the ground to a nuclear response. The Americans, being no doubt, would be crazy and stupid enough to carry out either of those responses, in my opinion. America, for all their bluster, I suspect, will not put the USS Abraham Lincoln in harm's way. It would be incredibly brave of Iran to blow it out the water, but they would pay a huge price. That's the case for not sending the pride of America, America's might, to the bottom of the ocean. But hold on, not so fast. The case for sinking an American aircraft carrier is immensely strong too. One remembers the picture from the 1982 of the General Belgrano, not aircraft carrier, thank you, Sean Murphy, sinking beneath the waves in the Falklands War. And if that image is put up on the screen, it's instantly recognizable by those who have seen that picture. Once seen, never forgotten. So a similar image of an American aircraft carrier in flames, black smoke billowing and sinking beneath the waves would be just as, maybe even more, iconic as a picture for the ages. Most people can see pictures of Pearl Harbor from 80 years ago and pretty easily recognize the event that was taking place there. The damage to American prestige would be astronomical, given its boastful nature, and certainly embolden others to stand up to America's threats. The fear factor among nuclear nations would be gone, and some non-nuclear nations as well. And this has a cleanness about it. There's no underhand tricks, trying to start riots to overthrow governments, no dirty war, just clean, emphatic, and devastating. Would Russia and China walk away from Iran or threaten nuclear retaliation should America use the nuclear option? One thing is certain, until America and Israel is stopped, it will continue its murky and distasteful conduct all around the world. We all know appeasement does not work. Just ask the European Union. Only the gravest of shocks will stop that or escalate it to a point where they have to put up and shut up. It'll be the ultimate in brinkmanship and lead to a very uncertain future. But would be those who would not, there would be those who would not blame Iran, but blame the belligerent and unacceptable behavior of Israel and its allies for that. Robert.
I've been texting a friend of mine in St. Louis today.
Yes.
And she said, I said I was waiting for the war, which would take me back to where I came in 1942. And she said, what was that? And I said, well, it's when Trump obeys his instructions from Netanyahu. Well, she agreed with me, but she also said that most of her family disagree with her. So America is hooked on the war. They bought it, 100% people here accept whatever the BBC say. So that's what I've found today.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. It's a good shout. Hopefully, I mean, most of America hopefully will have the good, common, decent sense to go, look, we need to not do this. Unfortunately, when Trump sends out such messages as he sent out to the Iranians, doesn't look good. He's putting all these messages out. He's talking about Iran. He's talking about Iraq. If Iraq don't pick the right leader, America won't be helping them. And of course, they'll go back in and hit them. So there's warnings and this is just plain bullying. And of course, we've got this. This, for me, is hubris of a great scale. A massive armada is heading to Iran. Well, we in the UK know all about armadas and what can happen to them. It is moving quickly with great power, enthusiasm and purpose. It is a larger fleet headed by the great aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln. You see, when you start talking like this, you are setting yourself up. It is ready, willing and able to rapidly fulfill its mission with speed and violence, if necessary. So what is if necessary? Hopefully Iran will quickly come to the table and negotiate a fair and equitable deal. No nuclear weapons. We're back on this nonsense again. Before, it was killing protesters. One that is good for all parties. Time is running out. It is truly of the essence. As I told Iran once before, make a deal. They didn't, and there was Operation Midnight Hammer, a major destruction of Iran. No, it wasn't. You didn't flatten Iran at all. The next attack will be far worse. Don't make that happen again. Now, on anybody's level, this is ridiculous threats towards people, as far as I'm concerned. And of course, if you're coming out with this sort of nonsense, then nobody's going to take you seriously. The problem is that China and Russia are no longer going to stand by and see this happen. Not only that, the Iranians have got off their backside and accepted the help from China and, of course, from the Russians. So it will not be and will not turn out the same again. You can take that literally to the bank, and you get many, many people coming out and going, oh, we'll never turn back home unless we have this, that, and the other. And there are so many people out there so delusional about what is going to happen and what could happen. But how badly do they want war with them? Let's have a look.
And so it's just like this war with Iran is a weird fanatical obsession with some people in my party that are here right now, like Senator Lindsey Graham. Yep. And it's insane and it's weird and it's destructive to our own country. And I speak about it both publicly and privately. And you know who also is sympathetic when I'm saying? J.D. Vance. And so that's a fact.
There we are, the late Charlie Kirk with Cenk Uygur, who I think is a complete idiot, and Anna Kasparian, who at least is beginning to see the light. And of course, when we talk about how much they're up for this and how much they'd like to have a war, let's have a little look at this. This is Hexeth speaking in Jerusalem. This is the Secretary of War.
And today, Jennifer and I and others had a chance to go see the Western Wall of the Temple Mount, the Western Wall tunnels, so much of the old city. And as you stand there, you can't help but behold the miracle before you. And it got me thinking about another miracle that I hope all of you don't see too far away. Because 1917 was a miracle, 1948 was a miracle, 1967 was a miracle, 2017, the declaration of Jerusalem as the capital was a miracle, and there's no reason why the miracle of the reestablishment of the temple on the Temple Mount is not possible. I don't know how it would happen, you don't know how it would happen, but I know that it could happen. That's all I know. And a step in that process a step in every process, is the recognition that facts and activities on the ground truly matter. And that's why going and visiting Judea and Samaria, understanding that sovereignty, the very sovereignty of Israeli soil, Israeli cities, locations, is a critical next step to showing the world that this is the land for Jews and the land of Israel. And I believe, as was mentioned, he said you need to, what was mentioned is you need to buy the ticket. Don't just wish for 40 years to win the lottery, buy the ticket. I would submit to you, in light of the support you have in Washington, D.C., the support you have amongst patriotic Americans, amongst evangelical Christians, amongst believers, amongst Republicans, even amongst some Democrats who can barely say it anymore in Washington. Buy the ticket, take your action, do what needs to be done here in Israel, because
now, it would have been lost on nobody, the irony of where he is speaking from, which is the King David Hotel, which the Israelis blew up and killed British Army officers in the 1940s. And of course, anybody who's seen that will think, shall we say, well, how invested are they? Well, they're massively invested. Have a listen. Robert, you wanted to say something?
Yes, just bear with. Yes, the King David Hotel.
Yes.
In 1946.
It was, yes.
One of the officers killed was the last son of Smith Dorrien, who saved the British Expeditionary Force at Le Cateau in 1914.
Yes.
A great tragedy.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, that was done by Israel, blew that up. Robert is absolutely right. Let's have a listen to Mike Huckabee, who is a massive Israel supporter, right up there with Ted Cruz and, of course, Lindsey Graham.
There's never been a president who's put this focus on it as he has. First of all, his daughter is Jewish. His grandchildren are Jewish. He has a son-in-law who's Jewish. A lot of his friends are Jewish, many of the people around him.
So there we are. And of course, there's let's not forget the 200 million that was given by good old Miriam. And of course, when we're talking about this, there's going to be more and more of this going on. People are going to be talking about this, and rightly so, they're going to be talking about this. Have a look at this.
Zionists tell you exactly what they're doing and how they're going to do it. Jonathan Greenblatt, head of the Anti-Defamation League, is a perfect example. So when they tell you who they are and what they are doing, just believe them. Here's Jonathan Greenblatt. Take a look.
So number one, we measure and track. Number two, we monitor and disrupt. We have a whole apparatus. I have 40 analysts working full-time, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, monitoring extremists. We monitor them online, social media, messaging apps, video games, cryptocurrency, podcasts, short-form video, Wikipedia, LLMs. We monitor these people and we share the intelligence with the FBI.
So when I say that our government is occupied or our country is occupied, this is what I'm talking about.
There we are. So that tells you pretty much how invested they are, and that's okay. But you cannot turn around and say that you are not invested in this. And of course, many people are invested in the way things are going here. Let's have a little listen to this as well while we're at it. This is Candace Owens.
Stocks immediately on Christian. You gotta absolutely just sell, as this is going down. You just see, this is obviously, it's almost like they just hired a bunch of actors to pretend to be Christians. That's the vibe that you start to get when you realize this is the only thing they care about. This is all they care about. And they will rant and they will rave and they will scream at you. And in case you are wondering why so many of them seem to have these extensive acting backgrounds, you can look no further than Lori Cardoza Moore, because these internet sleuths aren't playing around. The DCIA, the Decentralized Intelligence Agency, is moving quicker, and they found that, yeah, that's what Lori's background is in, acting and for romance hotlines and things of the sort. So maybe she was just cast as a Christian. Take a look at this.
Are you over 30 and single? You can find love and romance right here on the telephone, on the Romance Hotline. Just call this number, and all you have to do is listen. You'll hear recorded messages from exciting singles over 30 looking for love and romance.
The Romance Hotline, 1-900-909-8000. $2 first minute, 45 cents additional minutes.
Why not call now? All you have to do is listen.
She's not the only one, by the way, who was an actor, and this is a person that I'm quite interested in, which is her husband. She is married to a man named Stanley Clark Moore. He has an Air Force background, also went to go work for NASA, if his Wikipedia is to be believed, for a little bit. But little else is known about him other than the fact that he grew up on Air Force bases, that he graduated from high school in Texas, Humbly, Texas. Which Air Force bases? Who is his father? I got to know who everybody's daddy is. You guys know me. I got to know. If I don't know who your granddad is, I don't trust you. If you're in Texas in the 60s especially, I got to know who your granddad is. If your granddad was involved with the military, you got to tell me right now, who's your granddad? I need to know who Stanley Clark's father was. So, internet sleuths, get at.
And if you don't know who Stanley Clark is, just go and have, when we talk about Christian Zionists, and what's going on in the world at the moment. And of course, we're being told now that we have a major problem in the fact that we cannot criticize Zionism whatsoever. But it's quite clear from everybody and everything that you are seeing that the nonsense that they are pushing, and this is a religious, or I would say a quasi-religious cult, that one doesn't think that the end times are coming quick enough and want to give it a helping hand. Certainly, without any doubt, a political movement, and pretty much has a massive stranglehold everywhere it goes. Now, Marco Rubio has been talking a lot. Let's have a listen to what he's had to say. And we all know that he's been to the wall, as they say. Let's have a listen to what he's got to say.
All going in. We had in our hemisphere a regime operated by an indicted narco trafficker that became a base of operation for virtually every competitor, adversary, and enemy in the world. It was, for Iran, their primary spot of operation in the Western Hemisphere was Venezuela. For Russia, their primary base of operation in the Western Hemisphere, along Cuba and Nicaragua, was Venezuela. In the case of China, China was receiving oil at a huge, about $20 a barrel discount. And they weren't even paying money for it. It was being used to pay down debt that they were owed. This is the oil of the people of Venezuela, and it was being given to the Chinese as barter at a $20 discount per barrel in some cases. And so you had basically three of our primary opponents in the world operating from our hemisphere from that spot. It was also a place where you had a narco-trafficking regime that openly cooperated with the FARC and the ELN and other drug trafficking organizations using their national territory. It was an enormous strategic risk for the United States, not halfway around the world, not in another continent, but in the hemisphere in which we all live. And it was having dramatic impacts on us, but also on Colombia and on the Caribbean basin and all sorts of other places.
So there's Rubio blaming all and sundry for what is going on. And of course, we get lots of that all the time. Nilis, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was going to say Venezuela had taken loans out from China, and China had built infrastructure in Venezuela. This is why they were giving the oil as payment for these loans and for this infrastructure.
Yes.
From up until very recently, American refineries were the only refineries that could process Venezuelan oil. So America had the stranglehold over Venezuela.
Exactly.
But that hold was being taken away by China because China was building its own refineries in the Caribbean.
It was. So once again, it's about control. You're absolutely right. Now, I'm just going to give you a quick heads up. Now, we spoke about this, and many outlets have spoken about this since, but we were the first ones to break it. That Delcy Rodriguez, people are saying Rubio is threatening Venezuela. It is all theatre. Delcy Rodriguez is saying she's not going to do what America tell her to do. Yes, she is. These people did a deal. The Rodriguezes did a deal with the Americans, with the CIA, in a hotel in Doha. We reported on this quite a long time ago, January the 7th, actually. And of course, saying there are those that guess and those that know. And of course, this is the Bentley Hotel in Doha, where they had over 3 meetings and agreed to set Maduro up and drop him in it, as it were. And of course, they're trying now to frame it as though Venezuela and America are having a bit of a standoff. It is completely false. It is complete theater. They are 100% Venezuela going to do exactly what Rubio and America tell them to do. So don't be fooled by that for a second. Let's get on with Rubio. A bit more here.
All going in. We had in our hemisphere a regime operated by an indicted narco trafficker that became a base of operation for virtually every competitor, adversary, and enemy in the world.
So there we go. Venezuela was the hub. It wasn't just a narco trafficking area. Let's have a listen. Of course, when we listen to Rubio and he's saying all these things, of course, it is complete and utter nonsense. And of course, Rand Paul tackled him about this.
Argument. So it's a drug bust. What if a foreign country indicts our president for violating a foreign law? Should we extradite our president, or should we be okay if they come in and get him by force?
Look, I think ultimately we're always going to act in our national interest. And so if somebody comes after our national interest, like the case you've described, which obviously does not exist at this time, but the case you've described, the U.S. always has the right to act in its national interest and to protect itself. So really I don't know about this equivalency. Well, does this justify them doing it? We're always going to do what's best for the United States and America. We're always going to protect our system.
But the point isn't, and you're exactly right, we will act in our national interest and we should. So I'm not disagreeing with you at all. What I'm saying is that our arguments are empty then. The drug bust isn't really an argument. It's a ruse. The war argument, not a war, is a ruse. It's not a real argument. And we do what we do because we have the force, we have the might, we do it because it's in our interest. So we wouldn't let anybody come in, bomb us, blockade us, and take our president. We've had arguments about legitimate, illegitimate presidents, bad elections, rigged elections. So there's all kinds of same arguments that we've had in our country that they've had in Venezuela.
Yeah. So there we go. When the United States do it, it's okay. When anybody else does it, not on. And he's not, shall we say, the only one. Nillis.
Well, we know that the CIA are probably one of the biggest drug dealers in the world. And we know that the Zionists are involved in drug dealing as well. During the British Empire, the biggest scandal was the Opium Wars, isn't it? And Britain selling opium to China and trying to get its gold back for the tea trade. But that opium trade was controlled not by the British people, it was controlled by the Sassoon family, who were Zionist Jews.
Yes.
And as we know, both the Mexican and the Colombian cartels are trained in modern weaponry by Israeli military private companies.
That they are. Absolutely. Well put. Thank you very much for that. We've got, when we're talking about everything that's going on around the world, and basically some of the, shall we say, the worst kinds of people that are out there, we have to also have a go at Vladimir Putin. And we are going to here. We always call people out. We don't how can I put this? We don't just turn around and say, oh, this is great and all the rest of it. Complete nonsense. He is meeting, or has been meeting, with al-Jilani. Now, as far as I'm concerned, al-Jilani is a terrorist, he's a killer, and very simply, if we're having these sort of people and we are doing business with them and then meeting them, I don't care who you are. This is a guy who is absolutely slaughtering Christians. Now, I know there are territorial ambitions in Syria and trying to get along with Syria and everything else and try and keep the region stable. But if you meet him with al-Jilani, you really shouldn't be, as far as I am concerned. I know there are many, many people out there who might feel differently, but I don't believe any world leader should be meeting with a guy who is butchering people and has butchered people that he has. In the meantime, while we're talking about Vladimir Putin, Nillis?
Yeah, I agree with you, Warren. And I know that there are other ways that Russia could have met him. It doesn't have to be on a presidential level, does it?
No.
And I think that's sending the wrong signal.
Yes, the man's a butcher, and he's getting a morality whitewash from absolutely everybody, and he shouldn't be. He's a stone cold killer, and of course, he's completely controlled by people who put him in power. Remember that the Americans wanted him for war crimes at one point. Lee Williams.
I was going to say, does actually Putin know the actual truth of that as well? Is he kind
Yes,
of hiding it for the fact he
Yeah,
don't
of
know?
course
Yeah,
he does.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
we can't excuse Putin. Can't excuse Putin from that. We can excuse Putin for a lot of stuff. Can't excuse him for that. Meeting this guy is completely and utterly wrong. And I don't care who's doing it. Nobody should be helping him. The Russians, we are being told, are going to be meeting. Zelensky is ready to meet with Putin and discuss the territories and the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant once again. And of course, we all know exactly how desperate the Americans are to get hold of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. And of course, it always comes up in everything that's going on. Now, just to let you know, by the way, the Russian sailors who were on the tanker Marinera, just to let you know, the two Russian sailors from the tanker Marinera have been released and are on their way to Russia. And then Maria Zakharova has confirmed that this is happening. It was seized by the US Navy on January the 7th in international waters, piracy of the Atlantic Ocean. Now, what was really hilarious about that, of course, were, the Americans and the British were involved in this. And it turned out that the tanker belonged to a Ukrainian oligarch. There were 17 Ukrainians on board, 6 Georgians, 3 Indians, and 2 Russians. The Russians have now been returned home. So thankfully, they're on their way. Nilis.
Do we know what happened to the Russian crew of the tanker that the French prioritized?
Yeah, we don't at the moment, buddy. We don't at the moment. So at the moment, they're still examining it, apparently.
And since the Russians have given a warning that all helicopters and ships involved in their ships will be shot, have there been any more hijacks of Russian tankers or Russian ships?
No, not yet.
Right.
Not yet.
That's been quite. That was about a week ago that the French took that tanker, so they're holding back.
Yes, I mean at the moment we've not sort of got any more on this, but very simply, it's not going to be good. Now, when we get back to Vladimir Putin, Putin is not going to be meeting with Zelensky. As far as Russia is concerned, that would legitimize him. And of course, Peskov, we've heard from a friend that Peskov is going back to Abu Dhabi on the 1st, or the teams are going back to Abu Dhabi on the 1st of the month. And Peskov has turned around and said, we have made, or our chap who is close to Peskov said, we've made absolutely no movements whatsoever because there is so much to talk about. It's incredibly complex. And of course, they are not going to be turning around and saying, we're quite happy for this to happen and everything else. The Zaporozhye nuclear power plant is not on the table. And indeed, until there's, as far as they're concerned, there is some movement on this, then there's going to be a major problem as far as they're concerned. And they're not going to have any more nonsense. Sean Murphy.
Well, Warren, just a point on the piratical seizing of these tankers, and Russia saying they are now going to defend them and will take out any ships or aircraft that are involved, and nothing now has happened. That's because the West Russia has got a massive submarine fleet, and the West do not know where they are.
Yes.
And it's too much of a risk. I mean, some of these submarines, the diesel electrics, can just run silent for days. And they're almost hidden beneath the waves. People can't find them. So these countries do not know where the Russian submarine fleet is. And a Russian submarine is quite capable of taking out aircraft and surface ships that should decide they want to seize another tanker.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We'll get into a bit more of that a bit later on. Good point, well made. Let's get into some of this now, because this is, how can I put this? This is something quite hilarious. We're going to lighten the mood a little here. Now, we have been saying about AI and everything else, how bad it is and everything else. In Albania, there is a huge scandal. This is the AI that is causing all the trouble in Albania. We're going to just tell you about this. Now, a scandal has erupted because the creators of an AI anti-corruption minister is now suspected of bribery. Yeah, as I say, the Albanian AI there is called Diela, the world's first digital civil servant. Now, preliminary reports suggest the head of the developer agency and associates may have been linked to a group influencing government contract allocations. Previously, the AI official was promoted as a symbol of transparent procurement and technological process. But the reality appears very different. The promised transparency, where did it fail? So there we have AI from the developer agency influencing who gets government contracts and who doesn't. So much for AI running the world, of course. There is a certain irony to that. Let's also talk about a British officer being shot dead, a British Army officer being shot dead while on army exercise. And of course, this shouldn't be happening, and this is going to be a major source of embarrassment. This is the gentleman here. So let's get into the story about this, because it is very sad indeed. But there has been massive health and safety problems here. Now, many of us who are here, including myself, have done many live fire exercises and been on many of these things. Now, tributes have been paid to Captain Philip Gilbert Muldowney, 25, who died following the incident in Otterburn in Northumberland. It was a training area, which is, as I say, a training area, one of the UK's largest army training ranges. Now, the officer served as a fire support commander within 129 Dragon Battery of the 4th Regiment of the Royal Artillery since September 2025, where he was said to have thrived in this role. The MOD, who referred to him as Gilbert, was an immensely enthusiastic officer who embraced life with vigour that inspired those around him. He joined the army on January the 5th, 2020, commissioned into the Royal Artillery on December the 11th, 2020, after going to the Royal Military Academy in Sandhurst. Now, an army spokesman said the circumstances surrounding Captain Muldowney's death are being investigated, and it would be inappropriate to comment any further at this time. And of course, people are turning around and saying all sorts of very nice stuff and everything else. But of course, people are turning around and saying this is a real problem because this should never have happened. Now, there is a massive failure of health and safety when somebody gets killed on a range. This should never, ever happen. Now, this was a live fire exercise taking place at night. Now, there are many stringent procedures that are put forward to make sure that nobody gets killed, especially when it is incredibly dangerous at night. There are certain parameters that you are not allowed to break under any circumstances. And for this officer to be shot and killed while on an exercise means a serious, serious breach of health and safety. Let's hope that they get to the bottom of that and they don't try and fudge over it, because, of course, we all know that that can happen. While we're talking of fudging, Keir Starmer is in trouble again. People are taking the mickey out of him. Robert?
I understand that officer that died, it's not the first time he's been wounded and not in military action.
Yes, yes. And this happens, this actually happens a lot. Now, I've spoken to a couple of people on this subject, Robert, and last year there were 417 live fire exercise accidents in the UK alone. Now, that is a staggering amount of, shall we say, a lack of health and safety that is being admitted to the military. Now, it's never really safe being in the military, but obviously there are protocols and everything else that you have to take into account. For there to be 417, that's more than one a day, live fire accidents on shooting ranges around the UK is unacceptable in any shape or form. This is completely and utterly unacceptable. And as you're saying there, as you said there, this needs to be investigated and thoroughly so. You're absolutely right. Now, where were we? Keir Starmer, very simply, he is off to China, by the way, because he is literally fighting for his political life. Let's have a look. No, he's going crawling off to China, cap in hand. Why is he going crawling off to China, cap in hand? Well, we've got a bit of a problem because, of course, when he's having to buy energy, he's now fallen out with the Americans. And, of course, he's going to have to go and eat humble pie. Now, he doesn't really have anything to sell to the Chinese. And the Chinese, of course, will not forget. They will drive a very hard bargain indeed. But Starmer, as I say, is fighting for his political life. And, of course, he's getting the Mickey taken out of him, because you may remember Keir Starmer the other day turned up in a pair of sunglasses, which was a very, he was doing it, I think, to poke fun Emmanuel Macron, who, of course, we believe had quite the shiner because people are saying that Bridget had another go. Well, the very first thing that people did was they turned around and said, well, they knew where Starmer had got the sunglasses from. And, of course, we are talking about the three Ukrainian male models, of course, that are still to come to trial and are subject to a deno. So you can't talk about how he knew these three Ukrainian male models, or how they knew his former addresses or his former vehicle. I think we can all guess. But of course, he's, as I say, he is fighting for his political life. He's not the only one. There is somebody else fighting for their political life, and it is Kaya Kallis. Now, many people are already starting to question whether or not she should be in charge. The Russians and the Americans are not going to speak to her under any circumstances. And in fact, Dmitry Peskov turned around and said that very simply they would have to wait until she left office. Well, Ursula von der Leyen and her have had a massive falling out. And of course, Kaya Kallis likened her, we now understand, to a bit of a Nazi. Now, make no doubt about it whatsoever, there are stories beginning to come out in the press about Kaya Kallis, to her incompetency and everything else. But this is designed to get rid of her. This is the first in, shall we say, stories being planted in the media, ready to get rid of Kaya Kallis, and literally dump her as soon as humanly possible. So be on the lookout for this, because she is literally, as I say, fighting for a political life, and she's going to be in all sorts of trouble because literally von der Leyen wants her gone as well. Now, let's get into Ursula von der Leyen, who is the second of these. Let's first of all, let's hear somebody just pop their hand up. Who's that?
Only a quick one, Warren. Is this still connection to the Zionists at all, by any chance?
No.
Okay.
When I'm talking about this, Kaya Kallis, they want her gone because she won't, shall we say, come to the table when it comes to this. But I'll tell you where it does land as well. Of course, Putin has turned around and said if the Ukrainians want to come to the table, or Kaya Kallis wants to come to the table, Yushakov has said, by all means, you're welcome to come to Moscow. That's never going to happen in a million years. But while we're talking about, of course, let's just get into this a little bit, because, of course, you will have seen that, of course, Russian energy is now being thrown. Now, thanks to Brussels, we're now free from heat, jobs, and common sense. This is Ursula von der Leyen, who has made a deal with India. Naughty. That won't please Donald Trump whatsoever. And it is all because of LNG. So let's get into this. A bit of a long-winded explanation, but I feel it's necessary. Now, the Council of the European Union has officially approved a complete ban on imports of Russian liquefied natural gas, or LNG, effective from January the 1st, 2027. Pipeline gas, however, not until September the 30th, 2027, presented by Brussels circles as the logical culmination of energy diversification policy. You just knew that was EU speak. This decision, in reality, is not a triumph of strategic thinking, but an act of voluntary economic capitulation. Beneath the mask of geopolitical resolve lies a profound misunderstanding of real economic processes, disregard for the interests of its own citizens and industry, and a willingness to subordinate the fate of an entire continent to external, primarily American interests. Instead of securing energy safety for Europe, Brussels has engineered conditions for a systematic crisis, already manifesting in soaring prices, mass business closures, threats to food security, and rising social discontent. Long before this final decision was adopted, exports warned abandoning Russian gas without a reliable, affordable alternative that you're not paying through the nose for is not a step towards independence, but a path to dependency of another kind. These warnings have proven prophetic. Today, Europe, a once thriving industrial continent, is transforming into an energy appendage of the United States, whose domestic climate anomalies and market fluctuations now directly dictate the cost of living for millions of Europeans. American LNG, now the primary substitute for Russian gas, arrives at prices 4 or 5 times higher than pre-crisis levels, offering no guarantee of stability. In January 2026, gas prices at European hubs, TTFF in the Netherlands and THE in Germany, reached $525 to $537 per 1,000 cubic meters, a level that renders European industry uncompetitive completely on global markets. Meanwhile, underground gas storage, or UGS, fuel levels across the EU have dropped below 50%, with Germany and the Netherlands at critical lows of 40% for Germany and 34% for the Netherlands, respectively. Even under moderate winter temperatures, Europe is going to face acute gas shortages within months. Yet the gravest concern lies not on the number, but in how Brussels bureaucracy ignores the real consequences of its decisions. EU leadership continues reciting the mantra of breaking free from harmful dependency, refusing to acknowledge that the new dependency on the US is far more dangerous than the previous one. Russian supplies were long-term, predictable, and relatively affordable, anchored in contracts ensuring stability for both supplier and consumer. American LNG, by contrast, trades on the spot market, where prices are dictated not by economics, but by speculation. Investment funds with no connection to the real economy now set energy costs for factories, farms, and households. Gazprom rightly noted that this shift to exchange-based pricing has made the market extremely volatile and unpredictable, dismantling any foundations for industrial planning. The economic fallout is already tangible. As I say, soaring energy prices have become the main catalyst of Europe's deindustrialization. Energy-intensive sectors, chemicals, metallurgic, cement, glass, are all on the brink of collapse. Italy offers a poignant example: the historic production of Murano glass. Have you ever seen them when they go to the factory and they actually do the glass blowing, and you can watch them do it? Part of the nation's cultural heritage now faces extinction due to a fourfold surge in gas costs. In Germany, bakeries, restaurants, and small businesses are shuttering down en masse, unable to cover the energy bills. This isn't mere statistic. It's the reality of thousands of families losing jobs and livelihoods. Studies indicate the loss of one high-tech job in an energy-intensive sector triggers the loss of up to 5 additional jobs in related fields. Thus, deindustrialization, which has been unleashed by the Brussels sanctions, has become a chain reaction, eroding not only economies, but the social fabric of entire regions. Moreover, the crisis rapidly spills beyond industry. Agriculture, one of the pillars of food security, is suffering from high energy prices. Production of mineral fertilizers, especially nitrogen-based ones, depends directly on natural gas prices. which serve as a primary feedstock for ammonia synthesis. Now, rising gas costs triggered explosive fertilizer price hikes, forcing farmers to either cut application rates, that means reducing yields, or absorb losses. Either way, the outcome is identical. Higher production costs for agricultural goods, and consequently, food prices rise. Since February 2023, food inflation in the EU has significantly outpaced general inflation, peaking at 18%. Eastern European nations, where purchasing power was already below the EU average, felt this blow most acutely. Thus, Brussels' politically driven energy policy directly undermines continental food security, turning basic staples into luxuries for an increasing number of citizens. Now, social consequences are equally devastating. In France, 35% of residents already struggle to heat their homes due to exorbitant costs. This phenomenon, known as energy poverty, is rapidly spreading across the EU. People are forced to choose between warmth and other essentials, food, medicine, children's education. This not only degrades the quality of life, but causes serious health risks, especially for the elderly and children. Meanwhile, Brussels officials making decisions from comfortable offices display utter indifference. The rhetoric fixates solely on geopolitical goals, while ordinary people pay the price for their well-being and dignity. Added in the bitter irony, the very concept of diversification underpinning the ban has proven illusory because the multiple independent supply sources fostering competition and lower prices. In practice, the dependence on one supplier, Russia, was replaced by dependency on another, the US. American LNG accounted for 28% of total EU gas imports and over 77% of all LNG imports. This is not diversification, it's monopolization, and Europe has become a hostage to the US energy policy. In 2026, spiked domestic gas demand forced American producers to slash exports to historic lows. European gas prices surged instantly again, a stark demonstration of how fragile EU energy security has become. All this confirms that the European Union functions not as a sovereign economic political bloc, but as a protectorate whose markets and resources serve the interests of its patrons. The term colonial dependency, once dismissed as nonsense, now carries actual economic meaning. And with this in mind, Ursula von der Leyen has literally gone cap in hand to the Indians and has told the Indians, and we are told this by the Indians themselves, that they are now asking to buy energy from India that has been exported from Russia. So that just goes to tell you that all the nonsense rhetoric that has come out of the EU is absolute nonsense, because what is happening, they are doing secret deals under the table with the Indians, and Donald Trump knows this, and that's why Donald Trump had that absolute meltdown at India and said about the tariffs and everything else, because they have got wind of this deal. And of course, Ursula von der Leyen, Trump had some very, very harsh words for her indeed. So Ursula von der Leyen is in all sorts of trouble with Trump. And of course, the secret is now out. And if you didn't know that she had gone there and done a secret deal with India under the table, you jolly well do now. And of course, that too is going to signal the end of Ursula von der Leyen very, very soon. Because if the Americans want gone, they will be gone. So hopefully you have got that here. And of course, this woman is as good as gone as well. And you can hear in her speech, listen to this nonsense rhetoric she's coming out with. This is a woman who has nothing left in the locker and is about to be dumped. She will be first, and Ursula von der Leyen will be next. And we are saying by 2028, both these women will be out of a job.
No, the superpowers very often overestimate their own power and underestimate their need for anybody else. This is not, I mean, mistake you're never going to make when you come from a small country. You always know that you need others. You need to work with the others. Now, I think there, again, you know, if we talk about the economic curse.
Unbelievable. Word salad. And you can see quite clearly, she's got absolutely, she has no idea what she's talking about at all. Something else that you might want to have a look at. They are going to declare war on Donald Trump in America. Now, this is Soros backed. We've had a look into this, and a lot of the money that has got into these people who are saying this about anti-ICE are Soros backed. There's no question about it. Have a listen to this.
This is a small bunch of wannabe Nazis. That's what they are. In a country of 350 million, we outnumber them. If we have to hunt you down the way they hunted down Nazis for decades, we will find your identities, we will find you, we will achieve justice. And
so there we go. Let's put it this way. They're about to start with Soros money, starting right now. We are predicting that they are going to be starting riots very, very quickly in the USA over the next couple of months. So just giving you a quick heads up that is coming down the pipeline. Nilis.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Trump has not ticked all the boxes, has he? I mean, they want to flood as was happening in Europe, they want to do the same with America, to make America to get rid of America's nation state feeling, and to make it more of a global, ready for global occupation by a world government. Trump has ticked some boxes. He's supported Israel right up to the hilt, but he hasn't gone away with all. He hasn't gone with all the agendas, the transgender agenda, the immigration agenda, and the Democrat Party will do that for the World Economic Forum and the New World Order. So this is why they're going to go after him, and they want to get rid of his majority in the midterms.
Yes, absolutely. Whether you are a Trump fan or whether you're a Trump hater, there is, I don't think, any coming back from this. They don't do very well on the midterms, and it's going to be a major problem. Thank you for watching, Paul. Paul has to leave us early. They are literally going to go after Trump and try and literally shackle him so he can't do anything after the midterms. Nilis.
Yeah, also Trump, although he's pardoned the demonstrators from January the 6th, he hasn't gone after the falsity of the whole storming of this House of Congress, has he? Because it was all provoked and it was all encouraged, but he hasn't got to the heart of that, and people haven't been prosecuted. People haven't been prosecuted for the false election, because I believe it was a false election that got Biden elected. He hasn't gone after that. But as you know, that when the Democrats get in, they're going to go after Trump supporters like they did before. You know, they're going to be putting thousands of them in prison, aren't they?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You're going to get this, aren't you? You're going to get more and more of this coming down the pan, as they say. And of course, as I say, you're going to get more and more. I think you're right. I can't see that you're wrong in any way, shape, or form on that. Let you know as well. Here we go. China are dumping US bonds, and they are buying gold. As you can see there from the graph, China is literally responding to what they're calling American aggression in the markets and everything else. That's the China holdings of US treasuries in billions, and China's reserve of gold holding in millions of ounces. And as you can see, that graph is definitely on an upward trend for gold, and definitely on a downward trend, shall we say, for other things. And of course, as we say, once the US bonds start being thrown over, then we're going to get a real problem, and it's going to, shall we say, hit very hard, very, very quickly. And of course, people are, how can I put this, being very, very quiet and cautious about this. We now need to talk about people being very, very quiet. Yes, yeah, they would be smashing your door in, Vic. Let's have a little listen to. Let's have a little look at this. So we've got to talk about the more or less the takeover on Twitter by Israel, or should we say, along with TikTok and many other platforms, that has got people leaving and going on to other platforms. Now everybody is turning around and saying that literally Israel have turned into the same as the 1930s Germans, because what they've started doing is literally curtailing anybody who dares to criticize Israel on, of course, any social media platforms. And there's quite a few people that have been speaking out about this. One only has to look at the nonsense rhetoric that has been coming from many, many people on Twitter regarding the so-called loss of life of people, should we say, that are turning around and saying, oh, these people, Iran have killed this many, blah, blah, blah. And literally, they are just pushing the narrative of utter nonsense. And it is utter nonsense. Of course, none of the stuff that they're coming out with is true whatsoever. If you were to go through, we'll just go through, say, a Twitter feed randomly. So we'll go through mine. Let's have a little look. Now, I have got rid of a lot of people who are pro-Israel, because that is all I tend to get in my feed. We've got Mike Pompeo there saying the time is ticking. Marco Mickelson. Now, this is a gentleman, of course, who was running for office, and of course, he was forced to quit being a politician because he took inappropriate pictures of young girls naked from the waist down. He's banging on about the orchestrated Iranian regime. If we go here, Laura Dodsworth, if we held a minute silence for every Jew murdered by the Nazis. I don't see what that has to do with it, but there we go. German Chancellor says the Iranian governments are numbered. And as you can see, Neil Stone, I don't get this all. Talk of a nuclear deal, it's irrelevant at this point. The regime must go. This guy never posts anything but. Barak Ravid, France shifts its position on the Iranian Islamic. And of course, all we are getting, as you can see, as you go down this feed, is Iran bad, Israel great. Before claiming Iran could sink an aircraft carrier with drones, blah, blah, blah. Let me explain what happened at the UN. Rubio says the US need to have forces ready to strike Iran. John Cleese talking about Ukraine. Saudi Arabia breaks the bank and refuses to allow Netanyahu to use that. Barack Obama, more and more people about Minnesota. But as you go down, Saudi Arabia declared Iran's Revolutionary Guard as terrorist organization, calling all other states to do so. Now, you will remember, of course, that Saudi Arabia were one of the three people pouring money into the group to try and overthrow them. So when people say Saudi Arabia are not going to allow, should we say, any American aircraft to take off from there, I wouldn't put your mortgage on that if I were you. But it just goes to show this is X pretty much taken over. TikTok, many people have left. We've had now, let me just get the figure up, 144,000 people have left TikTok in the last 24 hours. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot when you consider how many millions use TikTok, but it's indicative of what is now being banned and stopped from going out on TikTok for anybody to actually listen to or to take part in. Unbelievable. There you go. Eric Jones here left yesterday morning. So we are going to have a little bit of Alex Christoforou for you in a minute. But there is something that I do want to talk about when it comes to vehicle safety. And it is really, really important. This, of course, is quite the nonsense where people say that once we have automated vehicles, you will be able to be far, far safer. Well, we're going to show you something now where the vehicle decided that, of course, your left-hand indicator was still going, so it wasn't going to allow you to turn right, took over from the driver and turned left into oncoming traffic. Well, we're going to play that one more time for you. As you can see, poor bloke comes hurtling out. But as you see there, there is poor guy flying through the air there along the roadway. Now, 7 people died and 3 people are critically injured. And of course, this is what happens when you allow, shall we say, machines to take over from people driving. Now, people driving doesn't mean that they're perfectly safe. Some people that are out there are absolutely terrible and completely useless. However, I'd much rather have it in the control of those people than I would anything else. One of those. So I wouldn't want any self-driving that as I say that, as you were saying there, Dennis is saying you wouldn't want anything self-drivable that was hackable or anything like that. And of course, that is what we are getting, and it's all. Let's give you a little bit then, since we've rattled on enough. Let's get into Alex Christoforou and see what he's had to say, because he's a guy who's definitely well worth a follow. So have a look at this and enjoy it. Well, having trouble playing this at the moment, simply because
Washington's primary center of gravity. The shift has been ongoing for a while. It is structural, not temporary. It means that Europe must step up. No great power in history has ever outsourced its survival and survived. These developments put a severe strain on the international norms, rules, and institutions enforcing them that we have built over 80 years. The risk of full-blown return to coercive power politics, spheres of influence, and a world where might makes right is very real. Since we last spoke here, the virus has started to spread. Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney hit the nail on its head in his own speech in Davos. It's time also for Europe to take down its sign. To acknowledge that this tectonic shift is here to stay and act with urgency. When I was a schoolgirl in Estonia, before anyone had mobile phones in their pocket, many schools used the bell system to tell you the time. The first bell was a signal to go to the class, the second bell was a warning, and the third bell meant that you were late and there would be consequences. We are now dangerously close to the third bell.
Hey homeowners, if you're thinking about selling, watch this before filling out any other forms, okay?
This is my video update on this Wednesday afternoon, January the 28th, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with a statement from the Ukraine Foreign Minister, Mr. Shiba Inu, who claims that the agreement for a settlement in the conflict in Ukraine will come in 2 forms, in 2 agreements. The first peace deal will be signed between Ukraine and the United States, and then the United States will also provide the security guarantees, and the European troops, the coalition of the willing, will also enter Ukraine and all of that stuff. That's the first agreement, and then the United States will sign a separate agreement with Russia, meaning that, according to the foreign minister, there will be no direct agreement between Russia and Ukraine. But the foreign minister said in his statement that the Green Goblin is still open to meeting with Putin. He wants to meet with Putin, by the way, to discuss what to do with the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, because Ukraine, in all of this deal settlement, Ukraine and the United States would allegedly have some control over the ZMPP. The U.S. would manage it. Russia would hand over the management to the U.S. or something like that, and Russia has countered with a proposal saying that the electricity can be shared between Russia and Ukraine, according to the New York Times. But anyway, the reason that the Green Goblin would be willing to meet with Putin, very generous of the Green Goblin, is so that they can discuss the future of the ZNPP. This is what the foreign minister of Ukraine is saying. Foreign Minister Shiba Inu says that Kiev intends to end the war with a peace agreement between Ukraine and the U.S. and a separate agreement between the U.S. and Russia. Apparently, without an agreement between Russia and Ukraine, the Ukraine-U.S. agreement is also supposed to include Ukraine joining the EU in 2027 without any EU input. He also says that Zelensky is willing to meet with Putin to discuss the fate of the Zaporozhye nuclear power plant. Yes, there is also the entering of the EU in 2027. That's also going to be part of the agreement, the two agreements that are going to be signed, allegedly. And if you believe this from the foreign minister of Ukraine, well then, I've got all of that. I've got all of that to sell you, so you can construct a very nice sidewalk. So maybe, why not? Maybe this is what's going on. Two separate agreements, each with the neutral mediator known as the United States of America. So Zelensky, he spoke to the Austrian Chancellor, and he brought up Ukraine's fast track into the European Union by 2027. The Green Goblin said Ukraine's accession in the European Union is one of the key security guarantees, not only for us, but also for all of Europe. That is why we are speaking about a concrete date, 2027, and we count on partners' support for our position. This is what he wrote on X, I believe, after he spoke with the Austrian Chancellor. $1.5 trillion. That's what's at stake here. That is why Zelensky is begging for a 2027 EU entry, because as I talked about in a video from a couple of days ago, according to a document that is circulating within the halls of Brussels HQ, which for some strange reason Politico has seen, one of the main selling points to potential investors for Project Ukraine, for the, what's it called, the reparations plan, the prosperity plan. One of the main selling points for the prosperity plan, with BlackRock advising, is that Ukraine is fast-tracked into the EU. This will provide some ease of mind, some stability for investors. They believe that a Ukraine in the EU will reduce the risk, and therefore investors, institutions like the IMF, the World Bank, BlackRock, all of these guys can start pouring in their billions and trillions into Project Ukraine. So that is why it is very important for Ukraine to enter the EU by 2027. Hello, Mr.
This car had dull, scratched, and lifeless paint. And look what happens when you apply this spray.
Turtle, or Mr. Tortoise. He's just kind of chilling. Just chilling out in Athens. Loving life. Living the dream. Living the dream. All right. Let's get back to the news. So yeah, 1.5 trillion is on the line. That's why it's so important for Ukraine to get fast-tracked into the European Union. all of this on the advice of BlackRock. That is advising, BlackRock's advising the prosperity plan. I thought it was called the reparations plan. I thought that's what it was called. Maybe they changed it from reparations to prosperity plan. I don't know. 1.5 trillion, Podolyak. 1.5 trillion, Podolyak. My God, Podolyak. You know how much money that is, 1.5 trillion? Yes, Mr. President, that's a lot of money. Yes, Podolyak, 1.5 trillion. I will put golden toilets in every single one of my homes, in every single room, Podolyak. Golden toilets, golden plungers, golden toilet brushes, golden toilet paper. Mr. President, I think golden toilet paper might hurt. I don't care, Podolyak. I don't care. 1.5 trillion, Podolyak. I will even give you a golden toilet in one room. I will gift you one golden toilet in one room. Thank you, Mr. President. You're very generous. Yes, I know. Podolyak, I'm very generous. I don't want you to get too greedy. So I will give you one toilet, one room, golden toilet. Thank you, Mr. President. So, yeah. Orban is standing in the way of the fast track of Ukraine into the EU by 2027. And Fico, Orban and Fico. That is why the globalists and all of the cool kids in Brussels are going after Orban and Fico. The cool kids in Brussels are hoping to remove Orban with the elections, which are coming up in a couple of months, I believe. I think the elections are slated for, I want to say April or May, or maybe it's after the summer. I'm not quite sure, but this year we are going to have very close elections in Hungary between Orban and Magyar, who is the EU globalists' pick, and they are trying to remove Orban. And Orban is even saying that Ukraine is meddling in Hungary's elections. I think there was a statement from Orban's office which even said that they are receiving some sort of threats or something. I think I read something like that on X right before I recorded this video. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but maybe I'll dig it up and put it on the screen if that is indeed the case. But definitely the Orban administration and then the foreign minister, Peter Szijjártó, they are posting on X that they are sick and tired of Ukraine meddling in their elections. And
so there we are. That is part and parcel, shall we say, of Alexander Christoforou. If you don't know or haven't seen him, do go and give him a follow. This is one of the few times we actually had the live stream on for the full show. So if you like what you see, come across to warrenthornton.com. That, by the way, is Alex Christoforou. You can find him on YouTube. You'll find him at the Duran and various other places. If you like what you see here, then please come across to warrenthornton.com. As I say, we have a subscriber show in the morning at 7:30 GMT, that's UK time. And of course, 6 days a week, we have, of course, this new show, which is normally 2 hours, sometimes even a bit longer if we have something special that we want to bring to you. And of course, that is for the whole month. It is just the price of a pint. So we think it's good value. Sean Murphy.
From what Alex Christoforou was saying, that it looks very much like BlackRock and Zelensky. BlackRock wants Zelensky in Ukraine into Europe so that they can put Zelensky in to replace von der Leyen.
Let's put it this way. BlackRock have invested huge sums of money in buying land from Zelensky. So BlackRock, basically what BlackRock want is total and utter control over Ukraine. And if they can get them into the EU, then that fast tracks them. They'll very quickly put them into NATO, stuff like that. But it also gives them control over the EU, and not that they don't have good control over that, but they can amalgamate the two and make it much easier to manage. So hopefully that helped. Thank you very much for watching the show. we've got to go. My wife is back after 3 days away, so I've got to pay her some attention instead of you guys. Thank you so much for watching the show, and we will see you all tomorrow morning at 7:30, bright and early. Take care of yourselves, everyone. And once again, all I can say is thank you for watching the live stream and making it such a successful show as it is. Take care all, and we will see you all tomorrow morning.
Good show.